Hello, and welcome to the webinar for the new SIPAC commissioners. Thank you for serving as your jurisdiction's commissioner. The SIPAC Commission could not function without you. I am Janet Orwig, Executive Director for SIPAC, and I will present today along with the rest of the SIPAC team, Gina Polk and Ashley Lucas, who serve as SIPAC specialists. When a new commissioner is appointed, we do send a welcome packet that includes this presentation, but we are hoping that this webinar will help kind of add extra information that may not be available in the presentation by itself. Next slide, please. So we're going to cover today a lot of topics. And so there's a couple that I do want to highlight that as we go through our presentation. One is the relationship between ASPPB, or the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards, and the SIPAC Commission. I also want to highlight as we go through the governance documents where you can find those, and then where you can find other available resources. So we're going to make sure those things get covered pretty well during today's session. Next slide, please. So what is an interstate compact exactly? So SIPAC is an interstate compact. It is the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact. It is considered a body politic. It's an instrumentality of the state governments that all have enacted the legislation. As you know, in order to become a member of SIPAC, the state has to enact the model language in its legislative process. It is the rulemaking authority for the SIPAC Commission, or for the SIPAC Compact. And it is a multi-state governing entity. It also is considered, as we like to kind of call it, a semi-quasi-governmental agency that's made up of one member from each of the jurisdictions that have enacted the legislation. By having the legislation, it's kind of a contract between the states that has the law authority behind the legislation that has been introduced and approved. Next slide, please. So what SIPAC isn't? It is not a nonprofit corporation like ASPPB. It is not a private membership organization, and it is not a professional association like the American Psychological Association. Like I said, it is considered a semi-quasi-governmental agency because it is made up of a conglomerate of member states. Next slide, please. So said, SIPAC is an interstate compact. What it is designed to do is to regulate the day-to-day practice of telepsychology across state boundaries, as well as the temporary in-person, face-to-face practice of psychology for 30 days into another state. The telepsychology component that I do want to specify does not have a time limit. That is unlimited. But if you are going to be going and doing practice in another SIPAC state, that is limited up to 30 days annually. Next slide, please. So got to give some history. I know, sorry about that, but I do really think it's important to kind of understand where SIPAC came from. So it started actually with ASPPB, and in 2011, the the ASPPB members were coming to them and asking for some help regulating telepsychology. And the ASPPB members, in case you don't know, are the licensing boards for psychology across the US and Canada. And we know telepsychology is happening in our jurisdictions. We know it's happening across our state boundaries, but we don't know how to regulate it. So in 2011, ASPPB created the Telepsych Task Force, and they were charged with coming up with a mechanism to regulate telepsychology. And they really worked on it for quite a while until 2015. But in 2013, they started looking at an interstate compact. And by February of 2015, they had the final model legislation ready, and the ASPPB Board of Directors approved it. Well, in February of a year, that's a little late for a legislative session. So it was really hard to get any traction in 2015. But by 2016, Arizona was the first state to enact the legislation in May of 2016. Georgia enacted the legislation in April of 2019. And you're going, well, why is that so important? Well, that is because every compact has a magic number, a number of jurisdictions that have to enact it in order for the compact to stand up or become functional and operational. And for SIPAC, it was the 7th state. And so when Georgia enacted in April of 2019, we had our 7 states and we become operational. The commission had its first meeting in July of 2019, And then in July of 2020, we were able to issue our first authority to practice interjurisdictional telepsychology under the authority of the SIPAC Commission. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about benefits to the consumers. And here is just some kind of broad area benefits. You know, we hear that it helps access to care, it helps continuity of care. It also helps provide a higher degree of consumer protection across state lines in that the consumer, because of the way the compact is laid out, knows how and when to be able to file a complaint if that ever becomes needed. But, you know, we've also been hearing from our authorization holders. And so there's more, kind of a little more specific areas or things that they are saying that they have been able to do with SIPAC and why it's so important to them. One is that there's a nationwide company that regulates homeless shelters, and they have been able to use SIPAC providers to make sure that there's mental health care in all of those shelters. There's also allows for evaluations for populations that are not easily served, like homebound or immune compromised patients. And it also allows for specialty areas like surgery consultants or actually pain management. Next slide, please. So benefits for the state is it does not impact your current licensure system. It allows for sharing of investigatory information across the states. And it also allows the states to conduct joint investigations if a complaint is filed. It also helps to show, because a lot of the jurisdictions are being tasked with showing how they're able to improve portability and make licensing quicker and get extra care and meet the needs of the workforce shortages. And SIPAC and the compact allows the states to be able to show that they're being responsible to that request from their government agencies. Next slide, please. So, like I said, this is one of the things that I really wanted to focus on. As we said, ASPPB created SIPAC. They did that back in 2015, and they worked on it and got it going. But at that meeting that happened in July of 2019, when the SIPAC Commission was formed and it created its bylaws, it became a separate entity from ASPPB. It is considered a semi-quasi-governmental agency, and it is no longer part of ASPPB. However, ASPPB and the SIPAC Commission do have a memorandum of understanding, and that MOU allows us to have services provided to the Commission by ASPPB, such as staffing, consultation services. We have office space in their buildings. We also share some of their data systems. And for those services, the Commission pays ASPPB a quarterly payment, and that MOU itself is reviewed annually by the Commission. Next slide, please. So here's kind of highlights a little bit. Even though, like I said, they're separate entities, there's some crossover. So as part of the requirements for getting the authorization to practice either telepsychology or in person temporarily under the SIPAC Commission, you have to have an e-passport or an IPC that's issued by ASPPB. The e-passport allows you is one of the requirements for getting the authorization to practice interjurisdictional telepsychology, or the APIT, and the IPC, or interjurisdictional practice certificate, is one of the requirements to obtaining the temporary authorization to practice, or the TAP, from the Commission. So ASPPB is responsible for taking in those applications, vetting those applicants, as well as the renewal of both of those certificates, and providing information to the Commission that those are actually valid certificates and have been issued. The Commission itself comes in and utilizes those two certificates from ASPPB to make sure they meet. That is one of the requirements for getting the APIT or the TAP, and that is reviewed by the SIPAC Commission. So we issue at the Commission level the APIT and the TAP and the renewals of those, but we also manage all the day-to-day functions that is the requirements of the Commission. Next slide, please. So here's our governance structure. We have the SIPAC Commission, as we said, that is made up of all of the member jurisdictions, one representative, you guys, and we appreciate that. They are in charge of making all the final decisions, and they also approve the annual budget and any rules and policies and bylaw amendments. We also have the Commission Executive Board that is made up to allow the kind of helping function. They meet quarterly, they review the reports of the other committees, and they make recommendations to the full commission. We have several commission committees, and Gina's going to talk to you a little bit later about those and what all they do. And then we have the executive director as well as the SIPAC staff, and we kind of manage the day-to-day operations of SIPAC. Next slide, please. So who can be a commissioner? We're a little broader. Some of the compacts that you're seeing, the healthcare compacts, their commissioners are much more limited in their areas, but we allow anyone that is an executive director or the board exec at the psychology level, a current member of the state psychology regulatory board, or any designee that the state, the compact state has given empowered to be able to act on that state's behalf. Next slide, please. So the roles of the commissioner: you are serving as a member of the joint governmental agency made up of all the member states. You are the voting representative for your SIPAC state. You have the affirmative duty to always act in the best interest of the commission. But you also need to act and represent your state that you are coming from, but you also need to make sure there's no conflict of interest, and that any law that may look like it's in conflict with your state law, the SIPAC statute would also supersede. So just need to be very conscious of your role going forward. Next slide, please. Qualified immunity. So that in this case means pretty much the same thing that is granted to you as a state actor, such as in your role as if you're a state employee or if you're sitting on the board. It gives you the same kind of immunity for doing your duty as a commissioner without being able to be any repercussions, as long as you do it in good faith. And that we don't have anything in our compact that gives immunity to any of our practitioners. This immunity is strictly for you serving as a commissioner. Next slide, please. So, as we said, full commission responsibilities. They're going to approve the bylaws. And that meeting in July of 2019, the bylaws were created. And since then, we've had a few bylaw amendments, so they do come up periodically, and the commission is responsible for reviewing those and approving those. You also promulgate rules, and those, making sure those go out and they go through all the proper procedures, and then you also get to approve them. You vote on the annual budget. You approve any advisory opinions that are issued by our legal counsel. We elect officers, so you will vote on those at the annual meeting. And we also request that you help to enforce the terms of the compact. Next slide, please. So one of those helping to enforce the compact is the compliance factors. So here's the list of the compliance factors. Some of the main ones deal with making sure adverse actions are reported to the ASPPB disciplinary data system in a timely manner. That we also ask that significant investigatory information and any licensees that are participating in an alternative program are reported as well to the ASPPB disciplinary data system in their time frame. We ask for, when you enacted the SIPAC legislation, one of the requirements in that was that you conduct background checks within 10 years of the SIPAC enactment date. So if your jurisdiction doesn't currently do that, may want to kind of keep aware of that 10 years. It seems that 10 years pass really, really fast, and making sure that we can stay in compliance with that. Maybe you want to get it done a little bit sooner and not have to worry about it. You also are charged with appointment of your commissioner. And so when a new commissioner or new state comes on, they have 90 days from that effective date to post their commissioner or appoint their commissioner. And then after that, if for some reason a commissioner rotates off, a jurisdiction has 60 days to appoint their replacement, and failure to do so puts them out of compliance for the compact. There also is that when SIPAC puts out rules, they go out for public comment prior to being voted on to be official rules by the commission. When those are out for public comment, it is the responsibility of the jurisdiction to make sure they have a place on their website that lists that there's public rules out for public comment on the SIPAC website. And then there's also the payment of the state assessment fees that are within 90 days of the invoice. These are invoiced in January of every year, and what they do is calculate the number of licensees in your state that declared your state as their home state in the previous year. You are charged $10 per licensee that has claimed that, up to a maximum of $6,000. why we do this and why I'm letting you know this is that as the commissioner, you will get copied on these compliance reports. They go out quarterly, and it's just to kind of let you know how your jurisdiction's doing. And if you see they're out of compliance in something, seeing if there's something that we can do to help get them back in compliance, or maybe it's something you can do, and talking with the state board to figure out how we can make sure that they stay in compliance in all areas. Next slide, please. So I think at this slide, I am going to turn this over to Gina, and I thank you for your time.
Hi, we're going to talk about each of the committees. We're going to start with the executive board. The executive board consists of a chair, vice chair, treasurer, and 2 member at-large positions, 1 ex officio member from ASPPB, which is non-voting. Elections for these positions occur at the SIPAC Commission annual meeting. On even years, we elect a vice chair and 1 member at large position. And on odd years, we elect the chair, the treasurer, and one of the other member at large position. The responsibilities of the executive board are to recommend to the entire commission changes to the rules or bylaws, fees paid by the compact states, such as annual dues and any other applicable fees, to ensure compact administration services are appropriately provided, contractual or otherwise, prepare and recommend the budget, maintain financial records on behalf of the commission, monitor compact compliance of member states and provide compliance reports to the Commission, establish additional committees as necessary, and other duties as provided in the rules or bylaws. Here's a list of each of the different committees. We have the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is the standing committee charged with developing uniform compact rules for consideration by the Commission and subsequent implementation by the states, and to review existing rules and recommend necessary changes to the Commission for consideration. The Compliance Committee is the committee that is responsible for administering the provisions of the compact related to compliance and enforcement. We have the Finance Committee. They are the committee that is responsible for audits, finances, develop state-specific materials, and etc. The Training and Public Relations Committee is the committee that is in charge of or responsible for training and public relations on behalf of the Commission. The Elections Commission or Committee is the standing committee charged with all aspects of the election process. Requirements Review Committee is the standing committee responsible for the review of denials for authorization, review of ongoing standards for reasonableness, and interface with the Association of Provincial Psychology Boards regarding e-passport and interjurisdictional practice certificate requirements as needed. We also have the Appeals Committee. The Appeals Committee is the standing committee that is responsible for reviewing any appeals received due to denials or revocations of APITs or TAPs. Meeting logistics. Meetings of the Commission and Executive Board are open to the public. A portion of the meeting may occur in closed session for purposes specified by the Model Compact. Time is allotted at the beginning of each commission or committee meeting for comments from the public. At each commission meeting, there is a report from the executive director, committee reports, and new business as needed. At the November commission meeting, elections to the executive board occur and the next year's budget is finalized. Robert's rules serve as the parliamentarian rule. Full participation of each commissioner is encouraged. The SIPAC governance documents can be found here, the compact language, the bylaws, rules, and policies and procedures. Those can all be found on the SIPAC.gov website under the governance documents. The governance documents of interest for you may be the SIPAC Commission Code of Ethics and Procedures for Review of Commissioner Conduct, which can be found here. The policies, particularly policy 1.2, referring to the conflict of interest, policy 1.3, communications, and policy 1.13, the memorandum of understanding. You can also find the current budget and financial information here on the website. And then will be turning this portion of the presentation over to Ashley Lucas.
Hello, I will be going over the application process overview. Like it has been stated before, in order to apply for the interjurisdictional telepsychology portion, you have to apply first for the e-passport. And once your e-passport is approved through ASPPB, you will then move on and apply for your APIT, which is the Authority to Practice Interjurisdictional Telepsychology. And then if you want to do the temporary face-to-face, you would apply for your IPC through ASPPB. And once that is approved, you will then move on and apply for the TAP, or the Temporary Authorization to Practice. Next slide, please. Next, we'll go over the program fees. The APIT fees are $40 annually with a renewal fee of $20. The initial fee is for the e-passport and the APIT, and that is $400 annually with a renewal fee of $100. And then your temporary face-to-face is $40 with an annual renewal fee of $20. And the IPC is $200 with an annual renewal fee of $50. Next slide, please. And here is our map of all of our participating states. All of the blue states are the participating states currently, and the black states have legislation that has been introduced, and the gray states are non-participating at the moment. Next slide, please. And as of September 23rd of this year, 2024, we have 14,340 APITs, and we have 841 TAPs. Next slide, please. And I will turn this back over to Gina.
Hi, okay, we're gonna go over the available resources. All of the resources that we will discuss are available at our website, which is www.sipac.org. Here you're going to be able to find a About Us page, as well as the SIPAC map, a history, and also all of the SIPAC commissioners are listed on the page. There are two SIPAC directories providing information regarding participants in SIPAC. SIPAC state staff and commissioners can view that at www.cipro.org, and that allows for the verification of the contact SIPAC staff for user access. And then we have the public directory, which is the HTTPS. I apologize. It's the verifysipac.org website. We also have the SIPAC YouTube channel. The SIPAC has the YouTube channel where educational videos will be posted. Currently, we have the SIPAC informational webinar for state board attorneys. And this is where you can find the YouTube and that state board attorney's video. The SIPAC annual report can be found on the website as well. The SIPAC Training and Public Relations Committee creates this annual report. The report represents the informational content that has been shared by the commission throughout the year reported, and that can all be found under the About tab, then SIPAC News sub-tab. Here you can find all of the scheduled meetings. Those are going to be found under on the SIPAC website as well, under Commission and then Scheduled Meetings. And then for further information, please contact us. Here are our contact information.
Thank you both to Gina and Ashley for helping with this presentation, but I also want to thank you all for viewing this webinar, and we hope that you find it helpful as you begin your journey or your role as a SIPAC commissioner. Thank you again for joining, and thank you again for serving as a commissioner. We could not do this without you. Thank you.